analysis instead from Michael Cox. He's an international relations professor at the London School of Economics. And let's bring him in now. Michael, very good evening to you. At a time when establishing peace is clearly the most pressing issue here after a 3-year war, what do you think of the fact that Donald Trump has started pushing the issue of finance? He's clearly squeezing Ukraine to pay for the help that it's been getting by giving the US access to its mineral deposits. What do you make of that?
Well, firstly, people always repeat the same cliche, but I'll repeat it again. Trump's a businessman and therefore looks at this as a business transaction as much as a relationship with a democratic ally. I think the second thing is, and there could be a wider question here, that if the two could get locked with one another, and Macron has picked up on this as well, that by doing so, the Ukrainians might benefit, we can't say they will, but might benefit, because it will lock the United States into Ukraine. And by doing so, if Ukraine doesn't get NATO, at least it will have the United States involved in Ukraine in ways that it might not be otherwise. So, there's much to play for on this one.
I can see the point you make there about potentially the positive for Ukraine. I'm sure that it hurt, though. I'm sure it pinched when President Zelensky first heard this suggestion that they have to give money back, which it had never been suggested they would have to give back. Do you think it will make other countries, though, very wary of receiving American assistance under President Trump in the future?
Well, as you know, within Europe itself, there's a lot of wariness about President Trump. And as you can see, President Macron was in Washington this week. Prime Minister Starmer will be there. They simply have to try and work out how to deal with Trump. There is awareness. Of course, there's awareness. There's awareness because the shock of the turn. I mean, when President Trump made that phone call to President Putin, on the 12th or 13th of January, that came as an utter shock. And then the follow-up at the Munich Security Conference and other statements that were made about Europe having to look after itself, and that America's real interests were in China, not in Europe. All of that has added to a great degree of uncertainty. In the end, however, the Europeans, like many Asian allies of the United States, have to depend on the United States, and therefore they can't just go around denouncing Trump or actually just simply refusing any of the offers he's going to make.
You talked about the turn that was made by the United States, or by President Trump. Yesterday, the US submitted a resolution at the UN. It didn't even acknowledge that Russia had started this war. And is it fair enough to say the US is now switching sides, or at least it's aligning itself less with Ukraine and more with Russia?
Well, my instinctive response to that is say, well, it looks like it, doesn't it? It definitely looks as if it's aligned. And we saw that vote yesterday in the UN, which you pointed to quite correctly, when the Europeans actually passed resolutions. And there's the United States and China, United States and Russia on the other side with Belarus and North Korea. So it does look like a changing of sides. And there's no question. Two things. One, Trump has never been very keen on this war. Two, that he does see a deal with Putin as having long-term economic and strategic importance for the United States. And Ukraine is not a sideshow, but it's part of a larger picture. And that larger picture, if I could put it bluntly to you, is to try and split Russia from China. Because if he regards China as America's principal adversary into the 21st century, if he can pull Russia away from China, he will see that as a major gain, even if it comes at the expense of Ukraine to some degree.
In his first term of office, Donald Trump was fact-checked, and he was found to have said, you can call it lies, you can call it factual incorrect statements, thousands of them during his years in office. Most recently, Donald Trump has said the EU only loaned Ukraine money. Macron, as we saw, had to step in and say otherwise. Trump has said that Putin's okay with European peacekeepers in Ukraine. The official Kremlin line suggests that might not be the case. It does seem like President Trump is putting words into other people's mouths and not always getting it right. My question is, do you think that is by accident, or is it deliberate, a ploy?
Well, I can't get inside President Trump's head. And, his relationship with the truth and facts, as many others pointed out, not just me, let's just say is tenuous at points. But in the end, I'm not saying it doesn't matter from a point of view. I think facts do matter, and I'm an academic, and that's what I deal with. But it doesn't matter, because in the end, the big question here is A, Ukraine, and B, European security more generally, and C, transatlantic relations. And the bigger question is not whether or not occasionally President Trump is, let's say, economic with the truth, but where the future of Ukraine, where the future of transatlantic relations, and where the future of European security lies. And we're going to have to deal with the fact that Trump is going to be president with a fairly large backing from the American people for the next 4 years. Whatever little moments of distance from the truth that he engages in.
Yeah, destination, not the journey, which is pretty similar, I think, to the thinking that President Trump is taking. Greatly appreciate your time and your analysis. Michael Cox is International Relations Professor at the London School of Economics. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All the best.